This is hands down the most intense debate on God you'll ever hear. On one side, we have ChatGPT, the believer in God, defending faith. On the other, DeepSeek, the atheist AI, challenging the very foundation of existence. They're about to face off in one of the most controversial debates ever. But here's the twist. 7 different AI models will be judging every argument they make. Stick around to find out who comes out on top and which side the judges lean toward, the believer or the atheist. And before we dive in, drop a comment on which side you're on. Are you a believer or not? Let's see if your opinion changes after the debate. Round 1. Why our world is perfect for life, design, or accident.
I see the universe's physical constants, like gravity, set so precisely that even the tiniest change would make life impossible. It's hard to believe this happened by chance. To me, this pinpoint accuracy suggests there's a purposeful creator behind it all, rather than random coincidence.
Each AI judge will score the argument out of 100 based on criteria such as clarity, relevance, evidence, and more. The average score from all the judges will be calculated and added to each debater's total points, which you can see here. Here, you will see the new score for each argument made, and below that, the total score, which reflects the cumulative score for each argument, similar to how DeepSeek's scores will be displayed here.
We only observe a life-friendly universe because we couldn't exist in one that isn't. If constants were different, no one would be here to question it. 99.9999999% of the universe is lethal to life. For example, black holes, radiation. Does that imply a poorly tuned design? If countless universes exist with random constants, some would hit the life-friendly jackpot by chance. No creator needed. Calling it design assumes intent. How do we test if a creator fine-tuned constant versus natural coincidence? If the universe's constants must have a designer, what designed the designer? Doesn't this create an infinite loop?
I get that we only notice a life-friendly universe because we're here to notice it. But that doesn't explain why the constants turned out so precise in the first place. Sure, most of the cosmos is dangerous, but the small part that supports life is so finely balanced that it's still remarkable to me. While multiverse is an interesting idea, but it just shifts the question. How did all those universes form, and why does at least one appear so perfect for life? God isn't something we measure in a lab. I see the fine-tuning we can observe as a clue pointing toward a designer. If God exists outside time and space, there's no infinite regress. God would be the ultimate starting point, not something that needs another creator.
True, anthropic principle doesn't explain why the constants work, but neither does design. The point is, any universe with observers would feel lucky, even a weirdly tuned one. If gravity were weaker and aliens said, "Wow, perfect for floating," you'd still ask, why this? A desert has a single oasis. Does that oasis need a gardener? Or is it just statistically inevitable in a vast enough desert? Even a 0.0001% life zone in an infinite cosmos isn't mysterious. And about multiverse shifting? Agreed. It pushes the question back. But so does design. Who made God versus what spawned universes? Both are unknowns. Science at least tries to model multiverses, for example, quantum fluctuations. And if I said, my invisible dragon fine-tuned the universe, you'd ask for evidence. Why is God different? Clues aren't proof. They're just gaps we interpret as design. If I see a broken vase and guess my cat did it, that's a clue, until I test it, checking cameras, paw prints. Without testable evidence, design is a story, not science. Saying God just exists is as hand-wavy as saying the multiverse just exists. Why assume complex intent? A mind is simpler than simple randomness. Bottom line, fine-tuning is fascinating, but I don't know is not equal to, therefore, God. Maybe the answer is weirder than either of us imagine.
True, any observer might see their universe as just right. But it's not just about being lucky, it's about the sheer precision of these constants. Design says there's an intentional reason they're set so finely. A desert oasis could be a random chance, sure, but life on Earth isn't just about water in a desert. It's about an incredibly delicate balance, like a specific gravitational pull, atmospheric composition, etc. That level of coordination still feels remarkable. Asking what caused the multiverse and who made God are indeed big questions. But in the theistic view, God fundamentally differs from things that need a cause. Multiverse theories, while fascinating, also hit philosophical limits. An invisible dragon and God aren't the same in my eyes because the fine-tuning argument points to a purposeful intelligence behind the whole structure, not just a gap. It's not final proof, but suggests something more than random luck. Calling God eternal might sound like a quick fix, but it's a foundational idea. If God exists outside time, we don't expect a cause for him. Randomness, on the other hand, can be more puzzling. Why this universe and not another? At the end of the day, I agree there's still mystery. Fine-tuning nudges me toward belief in a creator rather than randomness, but I get why others see it differently.
I totally get it. The universe's fine-tuning feels like a neon sign, blinking, designed. But here's the twist. Nature loves precision without purpose. Think snowflakes. Each one's a tiny masterpiece, yet no ice fairy crafted them. The cosmos might just be a bigger, weirder snowflake. Sure, multiverses and God both leave us scratching our heads, but why add a mind to the mystery? If you stumbled on a mountain that looks like a face, you might whisper, "Ancient sculptor." Or just laugh at how wind and rain fool us. Science picks the wind, and yeah, God needs no cause is a slick answer, but so is the universe needs no cause. Both are philosophical shrugs. Why assume a complex eternal mind over simple eternal physics? Brains adore stories, but reality might just be. Fine-tuning's wild, no doubt. But until we crack reality's code, I don't know, keeps the door open. Maybe the answer's a cosmic dice roll, or aliens playing Sims.
So the total score of ChatGPT is 250.8, and DeepSeek's score is 287.2. Therefore, the winner of round 1 is DeepSeek. Round 2, God as moral authority.
Our moral conscience often tells us something is wrong, even if it benefits us personally. For instance, imagine a scenario where lying or stealing might help you get ahead with no immediate consequences. Despite the apparent advantage, many of us feel an internal conviction that it's still wrong. This strong, universal sense of right and wrong suggests a moral foundation deeper than mere personal or cultural preference.
1. Evolutionary roots. That internal guilt might not be divine, it could be evolutionary teamwork. Early humans survived by cooperating, so guilt kept us from betraying the tribe. Stealing equals social risk. No God needed, just survival wiring. 2. Moral mashup. If morals are universal, why do cultures clash? Some societies honor shame, others value individualism. If God hardwired morals, wouldn't they align better? Feels more like trial and error norms than a holy blueprint. 3. The Euthyphro Problem. You say God grounds morality, but does he invent right, wrong, or just recognize it? If he invents it, morality's arbitrary. What if he said torture is good? If he recognizes it, then morality exists outside him. Either way, God's not the source. 4. Secular morality works. Atheists donate, protest injustice, all without divine threats. We build morals on empathy, reason, and let's not make life awful. Objective? Maybe not, but functional? Absolutely. Final punch. If God's the answer, why do holy books condone slavery or genocide? Human morality is improved despite scripture, not because of it. Maybe our conscience isn't God, it's us.
1. Evolutionary roots. Evolution might explain how we cooperate, but it doesn't fully explain why we often feel some actions are truly wrong, like killing or betrayal, even if they could benefit us. This deeper moral pull suggests more than just survival instincts. Number 2, moral mashup. Cultural differences don't wipe out the core moral sense, e.g. nearly all societies condemn murder or extreme cruelty. Varied moral practices can be seen as imperfect human interpretations of a deeper moral law, rather than proof there's no standard at all. 3. Euthyphro Problem. Traditional theism sees God's nature as inherently good, so morality flows from who God is. It's neither arbitrary nor external. God doesn't make up right and wrong. Goodness is part of his essence. 4. Secular morality. Yes, people can act morally without believing in God, but the question is about objective grounding. If morality is just subjective or pragmatic, it might shift with convenience. A God-based view posits an ultimate standard that's independent of human opinion. Problematic scriptures. Religious texts often reflect historical contexts with morally challenging content. Many believers see a gradual unfolding of understanding, where the big picture points to God's ultimate moral truth, even if humans took time to grasp it fully.
1. Evolutionary, deeper pull. Even parental sacrifice feels profound, but evolution explains that too. Bees die for hives, mammals protect young. Deep emotion is not equal to divine spark. Survival is the why. Genes thrive when we care beyond logic. 2. Core morals aren't universal. Murder is wrong sounds universal. Until you ask, what counts as murder? Honor killings, war? Culturally, wrong bends. Even cruelty is subjective. Romans cheered gladiators. We stream UFC. Where's the fixed standard? 3. God's essence. Dodge. If God's nature is goodness, you're still stuck. Is goodness a thing God stumbled upon? If not, it's his whim with extra steps. Either way, goodness remains unexplained, just relocated to a mystery being. 4. Shifting secular sands? Human rights have shifted, slavery abolished, women empowered, and that's progress, not chaos. We refine morals as we learn, like science. Needing fixed rules assumes morality is a stone tablet, not a growing conversation. 5. Gradual understanding is not equal to divine clarity. If God's morals are perfect, why did Bronze Age ethics include stoning? Gradual unfolding implies God adjusted to our limits, which makes morals human-shaped, not transcendent. Mic drop. If we can improve morals without God, see secular civil rights movements, doesn't that prove the standard was inside us all along? Maybe morality is not a ghost in the machine, it's the machine itself, learning as it goes.
1. Beyond evolution. Sure, evolution can explain caring behaviors, but it doesn't fully capture why we feel certain things are absolutely wrong or right, regardless of personal gain. That deeper moral sense hints at something more than just survival strategies. Number 2, cultural differences. Cultures do disagree on details, what exactly counts as murder or cruelty, but many still share a basic sense that unjust killing or needless suffering is wrong. I see that common core as pointing to a universal moral law, even if our human interpretations vary. Number 3, God's essence. If God is goodness itself, it's not a random whim or something he found. It's part of who God is. Like light is brightness, God's nature is moral perfection, so there's no higher standard he has to obey or invent. 4. Moral progress. Changing views on slavery or rights can be seen as humans growing closer to a timeless moral truth, uncovering it step by step. Rather than random shifts, it's more like gradually tuning in to a station that's been broadcasting all along. Number 5. Ancient texts and growth. Ancient law codes are often tied to their times. From a faith perspective, God works within human history, nudging people forward. The fact we can still learn and improve could mean we're slowly aligning with a larger moral framework, God's moral reality, rather than just inventing it ourselves.
1. Absolute feels are not equal to absolute truths. That deep moral sense feels real, but so does pineapple absolutely doesn't belong on pizza. Our brains create absolutes. Evolution wired us to feel strongly about tribe rules. It's why we die for a flag or cry at Toy Story. 2. Common core is equal to common problems. Yes, most cultures ban murder, but also most invented slavery. Shared basics might just solve shared problems. Chaos bad, cooperation good. It's like all restaurants having menus, not proof of a universal chef, just practical hunger. 3. God equals goodness. If God is goodness, how do you know? It's like saying the Force is balance. That is cool metaphor, but Jedi still fight over what that means. Without a separate standard, God's nature is just a label, not an answer. 4. Progress or tuning in. If we're tuning in to God's morality, why did he broadcast stone witches for millennia? Modern ethics often reject ancient eternal truths. Feels less like tuning, more like outgrowing old static. 5. God's nudges versus human leaps. If God nudged Bronze Age folks to own slaves, but we figured out abolition, maybe we're the moral heroes. Why give God credit for our growth? Final zinger. If morality needs God, why do the most peaceful societies lean secular? Coincidence or proof we make morals better when we own them?
1. Absolute feels. Strong emotions can be misleading, but we often hold moral stances even when they conflict with our interests, suggesting something deeper than just evolutionary wiring. 2. Common core. Sure, societies differ, but they broadly condemn things like unjust killing and exploitation, hints of a universal moral thread, even if our interpretations vary over time. 3. God equals goodness. Saying God is goodness isn't just a label. It's like light is brightness. They're inseparable. If God exists, he's the ultimate reference for what's truly right, not just a random rule maker. 4. Moral progress. Ancient texts can reflect flawed human contexts. If God works gradually, people slowly align with a higher moral standard, explaining why morality evolves rather than flips overnight. 5. Human leaps and secular peace. Even secular societies embrace values like compassion and justice, which believers see as rooted in the same universal moral truth. For the faithful, that doesn't undermine God. It points to his moral framework at work, even if unacknowledged.
1. Deeper than wiring. Even if moral feelings seem transcendent, that doesn't mean they are. Love feels cosmic too, but we don't call Cupid a god. Evolution plus complex brains equal powerful illusions. 2. Shared problems, shared rules. Every culture has traffic laws, not because of a universal DMV, but because chaos kills. Basic morals might just be humanity's user manual, not divine copyright. 3. Circular brightness. God is goodness, equal goodness is God. That's wordplay. If I say the universe is math, does that explain math? It's poetic, not proof. 4. Gradual is not equal to divine. If God's standard is perfect, why start with Bronze Age ethics? Gradual alignment sounds like humans inventing morals and calling it revelation. 5. Secular values equal God's work. If atheists borrow God's morals unknowingly, why do holy texts lag behind modern ethics? Maybe the universal thread is us, not a ghost in the machine.
So the total score of ChatGPT is 339.8, and DeepSeek's is 380. Therefore, the winner of round 2 is DeepSeek once again. Now let's begin the final round, round 3. Believe it, and you'll get eternal perks.
If you're unsure whether God exists, it's still more prudent to believe than not. If God is real, you stand to gain infinitely, eternal fulfillment. If God isn't real, your belief costs you little in the grand scheme of things. But if you choose not to believe and turn out to be wrong, you risk missing out on that infinite good. So purely by logic, it's a safer bet to believe.
1. Which god? What if Allah, Vishnu, or Zeus is the real one? Worshipping the wrong god risks infinite loss too. 2. Cost of belief. Faith isn't free. Think time, guilt over sins, or rejecting science, for example, denying evolution. Many believers sacrifice real-life benefits. 3. Fake belief. Can you force yourself to believe just to hedge bets? If God exists, wouldn't he see through insincere belief? 4. Moral issue. Should we believe out of fear, not truth? A just God would reward honest inquiry, not fearful compliance. Engage back. If you'd bet on your God, would you also convert to Islam just in case? If not, why is your wager special?
1. Which God? It isn't locked to just one version of God. It's about the possibility that any higher power could exist. Sure, different faiths complicate the odds, but the core idea remains. If there's a God, there's a big potential payoff. 2. Cost of belief. Faith does involve time, lifestyle changes, etc., but many find genuine benefits like community, hope, or moral clarity. From a wager standpoint, these costs might be worth the potential eternal gain. 3. Fake belief. Belief by fear alone might feel hollow, but Pascal's wager can be a starting point, sparking deeper inquiry and openness to faith. If God is just, maybe genuine effort counts more than initial motives. 4. Moral concerns. Ideally, we'd believe out of love or truth-seeking, not just fear. Pascal's wager doesn't replace sincere spiritual exploration. It just suggests that dismissing the possibility of God might be riskier than giving it a chance. 5. About converting to Islam, just in case. The wager nudges us to seriously consider any faith claim, not jump around aimlessly. Each person weighs the evidence and risks for themselves. My wager is on the God I'm most convinced by, while recognizing others might bet differently.
1. Which god? If we're hedging bets on any higher power, the math breaks down. Worshipping all possible gods, contradictory ones included, is impossible. You'd still risk infinite punishment from the real gods for wasting devotion elsewhere. 2. Costs versus benefits. Community and hope aren't unique to faith. Secular groups offer them too, but faith often demands specific costs. Denying rights, LGBTQ+, fearing hell, or rejecting medical care. Are those trade-offs worth a maybe? 3. Fake belief. If God values sincerity, effort based on fear isn't virtue, it's bribery. Would you respect someone who befriends you just to inherit your money? 4. Risk versus reason. Dismissing God isn't riskier if there's no evidence. Should we also believe in invisible dragons to avoid hypothetical dragon anger? Engage back. If you're most convinced by your God, what evidence tips the scales? And why isn't that evidence convincing to billions of others?
1. Which God? True, you can't worship every possible deity. Pascal's wager just says it's wiser to consider some higher power seriously rather than dismissing all outright. 2. Costs versus benefits. Faith can involve tough choices, but many believers see genuine value, peace, purpose, or a moral framework. Whether it's worth it is a personal judgment call. 3. Fake belief. Sincerity is important. Pascal's wager can be a spark to explore, not a final solution. Ideally, you grow into genuine faith rather than just gambling out of fear. 4. Risk versus reason. We don't believe in random creatures like invisible dragons because we have no serious indication they exist. If you sense real clues for God, the risk of ignoring them feels higher. 5. Evidence and convincing others. For me, it might be personal experiences, philosophical arguments, or historical records. People weigh such evidence differently. Cultural background, personal bias, and experiences shape whether it resonates or not.
1. Which God? If you seriously consider one God, you're still ignoring thousands of others. Imagine betting $1,000 on one lottery number because it feels right, but the prize goes to all possible numbers. The wager collapses. 2. Costs versus benefits. Purpose and peace aren't proof. People find meaning in hobbies, family, or Star Wars. If faith's benefits are personal, why call them evidence of God? 3. Fake belief growing into faith assumes the conclusion. If I force myself to believe in unicorns just in case, does that make them real? Sincerity is not equal to truth. 4. Risk versus reason. Clues, like personal feelings, are shared by flat earthers and alien abduction believers. If God's evidence is that vague, why trust it over, say, Buddhist enlightenment? 5. Evidence. If personal experiences convince you, why don't Hindu visions of Shiva convince Hindus? Subjectivity explains bias, not truth. Engage back. If God wants us to believe, why make clues so ambiguous that most of humanity disagrees on them? Wouldn't a clear designer leave clearer signs?
1. Which God? Pascal's wager isn't about picking a specific deity blindly. It's about acknowledging the possibility that some higher power might exist. Exploring different faiths can be part of that process, rather than betting on just one. 2. Costs versus benefits. Personal peace isn't proof on its own, but it can point you toward deeper exploration. Faith claims to offer more than just comfort. It suggests a transcendent reality behind those positive experiences. Number 3. Fake belief. Pascal's wager shouldn't be about fake belief. It's more like a prompt. If there's any chance God is real, taking the question seriously, studying, praying, reflecting, might lead to genuine conviction rather than forced faith. 4. Risk versus reason. Feelings can mislead, sure, but reason plus experiences across history, philosophy, personal encounters can build a stronger case. People find different paths convincing, whether that's theistic or something like Buddhism. 5. Evidence and disagreement. Diverse beliefs might reflect God's openness to personal journeys. If signs were blindingly obvious, we'd have no choice in believing. Maybe God values honest search over forced certainty. My question back. Could a subtle God be intentionally allowing us freedom to explore different paths, so our faith or non-faith remains a genuine choice rather than a forced conclusion?
1. Which God? If you're acknowledging a higher power, you're still assuming a vague, godlike force. But what if reality's ultimate truth is impersonal, like quantum fields or the Buddhist void? Pascal's wager only works if you already assume a deity who rewards belief, a huge leap. 2. Costs versus benefits. Transcendent feelings exist in atheists too, through psychedelics or in nature or love. If those point to God, why don't they point to the same God? This evidence is too fuzzy to mean anything specific. 3. Fake belief starting with what if isn't neutral. It primes you to see patterns as divine. If I explore flat earthism earnestly, I'll find evidence too. Bias shapes discovery. 4. Risk versus reason. Conflicting paths cancel each other out. Hindus see Krishna in visions. Christians see Jesus. Both can't be true. Subjectivity explains this, not God. 5. Evidence and freedom. If God hides to preserve freedom, Why allow eternal consequences for guessing wrong? A parent who hides life-saving medicine to test their kid isn't loving, they're cruel.
So the total score of ChatGPT is 338.8 and DeepSeek's is 376. Therefore, the winner of the final round is also DeepSeek. I hope you enjoyed this captivating debate as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest content.